You're absolutely right. I mean, there's no reason why CNN needs to present the news in the way that they do. And yet, they do, right? MSNBC and all the rest as well, right? Two people sit at a desk, read off sound bites and blurbs, and that's our news.
Yeah,
As
well,
opposed to, in-depth analysis, right? Or
they're
something
more
like that.
substantive news. If you look for more substantive news, I'm not saying it's perfect, but you could look at some of the shows on PBS or NPR.
Right.
What is that? That's non-commercial. So I think
Right.
that kind of points to the problem is that when it comes to media, you've got major corporations who are driven for one thing, profit. And the most profitable way to present the news, if you're trying to appeal to advertisers, and advertisers want to see numbers, numbers mean ratings, so you need to attract a mass audience. They have obviously concluded that the way to do that is a lowest common denominator way. It's not to present, 10-minute debate of real substance between people. It's a soundbite here, a soundbite there, something that'll entertain people and get them talking. And that's the conclusion that's been reached. And I think it's been proved. For the longest time, Fox News had the highest ratings, and it was the lowest of the lowest common denominators. So
That's right.
it does show that if media are driven by profit, major corporations, all owned by publicly traded corporations in one way or another, basically Wall Street, looking for quarterly profit growth. It's really, it's a machine. And the quality of news is a very, very low factor in all of it. The number one factor is ratings and profit growth. And that kind of demonstrates the problem that we really don't have a media culture that has any interest in critical thinking. And I don't think it's so much, these evil conspirators have concluded that they want to control America, so they give us this lousy news. I think it's simply a matter of economics. It's a business decision, and the system is set up that way that if critical thinking actually was profitable, then you would see corporations having great interest in having a critically thinking mass population. But it's
Yeah.
not. The profits are driven really by a population that's distracted, that just wants instant gratification, that's susceptible to buying every stupid thing that comes along, that's susceptible to running up credit, and this all feeds a system that is just looking for profit growth.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems that, God, there's a lot of different ways or, vectors you could go on that in terms of capitalism. Does a free market create a society like this? Or is there some kind of effort being made without getting conspiratorial? Because I hate going down that road, because I don't think the world is that simple. But yet, things don't just happen always at random. People do make things happen. And one wonders, in talking about anti-intellectualism, whether there is some effort to, in appealing to the lowest common denominator, we bring everybody down to the lowest common denominator in some way. How could somebody not see that that's what's happening with what they're doing, with their corporate products?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think you're very wise for not getting conspiratorial about it, because I think the truth of the matter is, and this is a point I make in my most recent book, Fighting Back the Right, is that it's not like there are a bunch of evil people who have taken over the system and and kind of run America off the tracks. The problem isn't evil people pulling levers. It is a systemic problem. And
Right.
there's a big difference between that.
Yes.
It's a systemic problem in that we have corporate entities that really own and control the entire system. And they're not going to let go. And it's not because there are evil people at the helm of these corporations. It's because it's what corporations, especially publicly traded corporations, naturally do. I have another article on Psychology Today saying that, if a corporation is a person, and legally in America, corporations are people, well, if they are people, if you did a psychological profile on them, you would have to conclude that they are narcissistic and psychopathic. They're sociopathic. They are totally consumed. It sounds funny, but it's actually true.
I totally am tracking. Totally am tracking.
It is humorous to look at it that way, but it's not just an exaggeration. It's actually true. A corporation is set up for one thing: its own profit growth. That is what it exists for, and it's the only thing it is interested in. It is totally narcissistic. It advertises itself and its products, and it wants people to love it. And it has no compassion. It has no empathy. These emotions are totally non-existent in the corporate psyche. Now, you might say, well, yeah, but it's run by human beings. So, but you have to realize that systemically, and again, we're getting back to the systemic problem. Systemically, these people who are human beings are in a position where their fiduciary duty and their job duties require that they promote the corporate well-being. That's what they do. And that's why you have tobacco executives who are eager to advertise to children anywhere. They wouldn't want their own kids smoking.
That's
but
right.
They're eager to advertise to children anywhere they can in the world. And they'll talk the good talk in America because that's what's good for the corporation from a PR standpoint, to say, oh, we care about kids and we're even going to invest money over here for kids not to smoke. But you let them loose in a European country or a developing country where it is legal to advertise to children, and they'll do it.
That's right.
And it's the same thing. You get to the Ford Pinto blowing up. It was an economic equation these are dramatic examples, but they are real life. They are the reality in the corporate world, or everywhere you go. It's just the nature of corporations, and especially publicly traded, because publicly traded corporations, everyone in management is answerable to Wall Street. They want to see quarterly growth. They want to see quarterly earnings meet expectations. And if they're off by a few cents per share, all hell breaks loose. People lose jobs and money's lost. Share price goes down and it's disastrous. It sends ripples. I mean, when it happens on a mass level, it causes a recession. So, this is what we're dealing with, a systemic problem where these extremely powerful entities own and control the country. And of course, they own and control Washington, D.C. It's in their business interest to do that they want political power, they want political influence, and they have immense wealth, much more wealth than any individual humans have. So they will use their wealth to lobby and to use the courts and to do all those things. You go to Washington, D.C., it's a city that's owned and controlled by corporate interests. Those lobbyists down there, 99% of them are working for corporate and industry interests. They're not working for, Chris or Dave. They're working for corporations. So
yeah, and it's the conspiracy avenue is so simple-minded. It nullifies the complexity of the world and the systemic problems. I think it avoids looking at the systemic problems in favor of looking at personalities or 12 men who are puppet masters, sort of thing. And that's what I've always railed against on conspiracy theory. Yet we are talking about conspiracy. We're just talking about it in a much broader sense than what they're talking about.
Well, you could call it a conspiracy, but I don't think a systemic problem is really a conspiracy, because a conspiracy implies that there are wrongdoers with intent Now, there are bad people in corporate America. There are bad people everywhere. And
Yeah.
there are people who are pursuing their own personal interests. But when you have a systemic problem
Yeah.
that will cause, the average population, just ordinary people, to do things that are bad for the general population, then
Yeah.
that's not really a conspiracy. And
Fair
it's
enough.
one of the reasons why the way that the left, and I consider myself of the left, but the left often demonizes the 1%, as if the 1% are the problem, because there's the
Right.
99% of us who want what's good, but there's the 1%, the greedy 1%.
Right.
Uh, I think that might be a helpful political slogan or paradigm to use for political purposes, but it's not an accurate description of what the problem is in America. I think the average person who's a member of the 1% is probably as much in favor of progressive, human-centered public policy as the rest of us. But I think there is a systemic problem that prevents that from happening, because there are institutional interests that are opposed to what's best for the average person.